Get raw with the fever on the dance floor.
Terrific win for Elliot Barbour, his first in the category in race 1, the ECB Super Utes.
Just coming with the fever.
Barbour, it's going to be a massive arm wrestle between the two of them as they run down towards turn 4. It's Barbour in front. Elliot Barbour leads.
Get raw with the fever on the dance floor.
So the Trans Am Cup Series, it heads to QR this weekend, and if there's one man that knows how to pilot one of those bad boys around a racetrack, it's our next guest, car number 75, the Alpha Theta Camaro, and the co-host of the Apex Hunters United. Welcome, Elliot Barbour, back to the driver's seat. Barbs, welcome back.
Mate, it's been, I think the last time I was on the show was just prior to Bathurst a couple of years ago.
It was.
So, yeah, thanks for having me back on, Nims. It's good to have a chat.
Well, yeah, obviously, it's a tradition to do this, and unfortunately, I'm on the clock, so I'm going to have to do it with a can of Coke, but quick sound check. There we go.
Oh, good man. I didn't even bring a can with me. I'm at work at the moment, so but I appreciate the sound check there, so thank you.
Now, before we talk Trans Am, mate, I want to ask you about Supercars, because I want to know, when you saw the footage of a Red Bull Ampol Racing Ford Mustang fire into a wall in Latvia, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
I mean, Scotty spoke about it prior to going over to Europe to do the demonstrations for Red Bull and the race team. And we were just joking at the bar on one of the shows. You know, he's talking about ripping the front bar off at his first ever Triple Eight ride day. So, yeah, we got inundated with people saying you jinxed yourself was the first thing. I was actually doing a budget enduro with Pete Zibris in an XL and his son Christopher and Declan Fraser on the weekend. So I wasn't really looking at my phone much because we had 8 hours each day. But I noticed all these notifications just blowing up when I woke up one morning. I was like, what's going on? And yeah, I opened the phone and unfortunately saw the Red Bull Mustang nose first in the wall. But yeah, we've got a group chat with Shane and Nick Foster and a few of the OG Apex Hunters. So that was blowing up. And yeah, unfortunately for Scotty, he's owned it. And you can't hide from that stuff, right? There's always someone filming it somewhere. So I don't know if I'll say it's funny because it's probably not funny, but at least Scotty's a good sport about it and no one's safe. So the boys were straight into him going, mate, you've got to post it. You've got to do something about it now. So, you know, if anything, we got some great content out of it. So thanks, Scotty.
And hey, look, Red Bull's pretty happy with their cash that they've got with all that promotion worldwide at the moment too. So I don't think they'll be complaining too much. But let's look towards QR a little bit, because speaking of crash and bash, there was some absolute biff going down at Perth, mate. Young Jared Hughes, he's the standout though. He's leading the driver standings at the moment. But mate, you've been in the category for a fair while, and it looks like it's really evolved from the days of when, you know, Nathan Hearn was just flying around in a Dodge.
100%, mate. I think the category's going gangbusters, really. There's so much talent there. I think there's probably a lot of guys that supercar teams need to be looking at, because as far as talent's concerned, it's stacked. Like the top 10 in Trans Am comfortably could go and run main game supercars, no dramas, in my personal opinion. There's some really fast young guys. I see Hughesy's obviously on form at the moment. He's spent a fair bit of time on those cars now. He was obviously the TA2 champion in the previous year. And I think that sort of helps with it all as well, because there's a bit of a feeder series there, obviously, with TA2. So you get a lot of the juniors coming in, they run heaps of laps in TA2, they really know the cars. Cars are identical, and then when they're ready, they step up to Trans Am. And the only thing that's different is obviously the aggressiveness of the racing. And, you know, and that is just because there's so much talent. You've got guys like James Moffat, Todd Hazelwood, as you mentioned, Nathan Hearn. Guys have done lots and lots of laps, super experienced, and they've raced at main game level before. So the racing is as intense, and I had a good laugh with Tim Blanchard at Perth because Timmy jumped in. He actually had a great round and ended up third for the weekend, but he just said to me, man, racing is as hard as main game, you know. And so I think from that point of view, it's nice for guys like myself that haven't had the opportunity to run in supercars to know that if the opportunity came knocking, you're ready, because we've done 4 or 5 years of a similar style of aggressiveness with the racing. You know, you can't blink for a second and you can't leave much of a gap because someone's going to mug you and they're going to stick it in there. So, you know, the racing's intense, but I mean, Perth was a bit of a shame. The last race, we had some damage off the start. Because up until that, it'd been super intense, but fairly clean. And I mean, there's the odd rub here and people get into each other, and that's just hard racing. Sometimes that happens. But obviously Perth, the last race, was a bit disappointing because up until that, we'd done all the races with, I don't think, one safety car, which was pretty incredible considering we had a wet, dry race and then, 30 laps around Wanneroo's a fair way in those things. So the racing is definitely, I think it's the most exciting racing I've ever been a part of.
It's been absolutely awesome. And even the second time around because I remember last year when it was the first time at Hidden Valley, that I don't think showed off just how good Trans Am racing can be. But this year it's really sort of stepped up a bit. And you had some incredible pace in that Camaro as well. But like you said, there's just so much going on and there was just carnage. It was almost like, geez, I've just got to keep myself safe here. But do you reckon it's funny that you mentioned supercars drivers jumping in on board? Like we've seen Brody Kostecki jump in the TA2 as well. And you know how normally when you see I don't know, let's just say we get someone like if Jamie Whincup jumped into an Excel, he'd school everyone. You don't see that in Trans Am because everyone's on such an equal pace, be it TA2 or Trans Am, and the cars, V8, the H pattern, everything's pretty much carbon copy the same, just maybe the different body shape. It really does give you the old test. And I've talked to Todd Hazelwood, especially since, he's really found his niche there. And he sort of said this is kind of like old school supercar racing.
Yeah, 100%. I think to your point, Nims, you can't just jump in, doesn't matter how good you are, and dominate. And we've seen that with Brody in the year. I mean, they'll run up the front, of course, but that's because they're exceptional race car drivers, best in the world sort of stuff, some of those guys. So, but they'll still come in, and one of the juniors that's been running in TA2 or Trans Am will either be in front of them or right on them. And we've seen that before. Like Ryan Wood came and did the TA2 two-driver event, which we did Queensland early in the year. And Woody was the same. He was very, very fast, but he didn't have it all his own way.
Yeah.
He was having, and Will Davison was the same. They were in big battles with guys throughout the race. And so I think the quality is really there. You do get that a little bit with most national categories. The guys that are there all the time are very hard. They're maximising what they've got. But the depth between TA2 and Trans Am is unbelievable. But it's awesome when guys like Brody, Woody, Davo, any of those guys jump in. Because for the younger guys and girls that are racing, it's a great yardstick. And I think back to my original point about people need to take Trans Am more seriously as co-driving options and future supercar stars is because there are yardsticks there. You've got Todd Hazelwood, you've got James Moffat, you've got Jared Hughes, you've got Nathan Hearn, you've got all these people, and you've got guys like Brody and that will dip their toes in there once or twice a year in the TA2 or in the Enduro format that you go, well, there's genuine yardsticks to benchmark talent on, where, no disrespect to Super 2, but they're all just young drivers.
Yeah.
So you actually don't really know how well they're going. And I mean, we've seen in the past when guys like Tim Blanchard have jumped in or Jack Perkins has jumped into Super 2, generally they'll win. And so you don't get that with Trans Am. So I think it's a great spot if you are young up-and-comer and you want to prove yourself. There's always going to be someone to benchmark yourself against, whether it be Moff, Hazelwood, or someone like Brody. So it's a pretty good spot to be.
We even sort of see recently, like Jimmy Golding jumping back in the Trans Am too, just to sort of keep himself sharp. And it's funny you mentioned that because Aaron Love was a big standout in Super 2, but that's only because the guy's dominating Porsche Carrera Cup. He's got such a body of experience under him, and it just goes to show how there's been that many drivers I reckon that have had their professional careers cut short because they've been in the wrong team at the wrong time in supercars in main game. And it's nice that you got a category like Trans Am, like TA2, where people actually can browse and look at timesheets and go, you know what, this guy's got a bit here, got a bit there. And you're one of the few guys that that have been in a Camaro, and the category has been dominated by Mustangs for the past couple of years. But this year we've really seen that the Chev's getting a few race wins and it's balanced out a little bit. What's made the change? Because I know it's a carbon fiber shell. It's not like, they're all basically underneath the hood is exactly the same on every car. So what's made the difference in 2026?
Just the expertise, mate, to be honest. Back when I was kind of one of very few Camaros running around, we were probably the top Camaro, but we were just a privateer team running it ourselves, no engineers. So, again, very hard to tell what you're up to and how good is the package. And then a lot of people at that time just, for whatever reason, migrated to the Mustangs. Now, obviously, with GRM and Marcus Ambrose Motorsport migrating to the Camaros, Nathan Hearn's migrated to the Camaros, Jared Hughes and the IES team there in Camaros as well. So I think you've now just got a lot more expertise in the Camaro. So obviously talent with drivers, but also there's a lot more engineering in them. And as you say, mechanically the car's the same. Bodies are all made from the same stuff, but they are a little bit different in the body. So there are some things that are just slightly different in the way that you will set up the car. And I think just having the brain power of a few of those really strong teams and engineers and drivers behind it has just elevated the Camaro package up. And, you know, you saw with GRM won a lot of races over the last few years, and they've now migrated to the Camaro. So they're obviously going to win races. There's no doubt about that. And obviously Nathan Hearn-Sung being a two-time champion, migrating to a Camaro, you'd expect to see them win races. Toddy Hazelwood stuck it out in the Mustang, and he's still
winning,
absolutely on fire. I mean, if you were a betting man, you'd put $10 on Todd for pole this weekend at QR, you know. There's a form guide there because he's very, very strong there. But yeah, so I think now you actually see that the cars are even Stevens, where previously people probably thought I was an advantage in the Mustang. Well, that was only because it was just little old me, privateer, running around really in it. So, yeah, I think now it definitely shows that it doesn't matter what body you want to get. Not many people running the Dodge anymore, but that's cool. It's really just a Mustang Camaro Cup now, but it's probably not a bad thing. And I think, yeah, it doesn't matter what body you've got. They'll do the same job if you just tweak it in the right direction. And then at the end of the day, the cars just come back. You got to get up on the wheel, mate. You got to drive them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I enjoy driving them, because you know if you do a good job, you've maximised. So yeah, it sort of comes down to that, which is great.
The thing that I love about Trans Am, and I remember our good mutual friend of ours, Matt McKeldin, who's doing some great stuff in the category at the moment now, with a collared shirt and in a boardroom. But I remember he was giving me the run through at Phillip Island a few years ago when the category was still in its infancy, and just the sound, the way that people actually drive them, and the fact that it's an accessible category, that you don't need to mortgage your house and put millions upon millions of dollars to find cars that just aren't made anymore, and that it's growing more and more in the States, is something really good. And as you mentioned, you've been welcomed into the Marcus Ambrose Motorsport, Gary Rogers alignment here. When GRM go all in on a category, they really go all in. So what's it been like? Because obviously you've been a privateer for that long, still got your sponsors that have backed you from all these years. What's it like with that added support of GRM behind you as well with Marcus?
It's been great, eye-opening and great. I mean, in one way, it's a bad thing because I've now just told myself, why would I ever do it again by myself? No wonder I couldn't compete against these guys. Just so much. Again, it's just the expertise and resources that they have is amazing. All the crew at GRM just really, we were pretty fierce competitors for a couple of years there, and they just welcomed me with open arms. Barry's been absolutely sensational to deal with, and all their guys are just incredible guys. And yeah, just so much knowledge in one workshop is pretty crazy. They still have a lot of the OG crew from back in their supercar days still floating around. So there's a lot of expertise there. And then obviously with Marcus, that relationship's been going since last year. He came on as a bit of a technical help, and then halfway through the year ran the car himself. So I teamed up with Lovey, as you mentioned, for a couple of rounds there. And he's just been, unbelievable. I mean, how do you not get the best out of yourself with someone like that on the radio to you, and sort of mentoring you. And then also his technical knowledge is all that time he spent in America in NASCAR. The cars are essentially a stock car, and the tyre that we run on is essentially a stock car tyre. So all that knowledge that he's got from over there is still extremely relevant. So for me, it was just a huge boost. And, we got some good results this year, a couple of thirds, one at Bathurst, one at Darwin, and then, Perth, we were really, really strong, one of the fastest cars, but it's just so competitive now. If you stuff up qualifying, which I did, it's like supercars. You see Will Brown or Brock Feeney, if they don't qualify up the front, very hard to come through, and Trans Am has that. But joining up with a big powerhouse like GRM and Marcus Ambrose Motorsport has just been crazy. I've loved every minute of it, and as I say, now unfortunately means I've got to go raise more funds because I just I don't really want to run a car ever again by myself. So, but it's been a wild journey, and again, teammates is something I haven't had a lot of in Trans Am. So being able to benchmark yourself off directly with the data, and guys like Jack Smith and Lockie Evanet and Tom Davies, and they've got a young charger there with Jordan Freestone now. To have 6 cars running, you just learn so much quicker. So after 1 or 2 practice sessions, you're on it, versus maybe having to wait till race 3 of the weekend. So they're sort of the added benefits that you'll see from running with a bigger team.
I'm sure there's a few. I'm sure Tom and Geordie would be copying your notepad a couple of times too. So don't sell yourself short there that the Elliot Barbour learning tree is involved in there at GRM as well, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky, Nims. I've raced for a long time, and I've just had one of those careers where I've had to drive sort of everything. I haven't been able to really. Trans Am has been the only category I've ever really stuck with for more than one season, and not because I haven't wanted to, but just the way that circumstances roll, I guess. So I think me driving so many different cars across my career has made me very adaptable, and I think that's a benefit to me is I can jump in and straight away I'll work it out to the best of my ability pretty quickly. So I think, yeah, I'd like to think that I'm able to help some of the guys with my own knowledge and experience, and especially Geordie. We've worked really well together. He's early days in his racing career, and I think the resilience is one thing, right? And that's one thing Marcus will teach you, is you've got to be resilient. And I guess motorsport's a hard sport, and I've probably got a bit of that as well. So between Marcus and I, will slowly toughen Geordie up, and he'll get used to it. But he'll get flying along nicely. And they were all testing up at QR the other week, GRM. So I'm sure those guys will put on a strong show this weekend.
Well, mate, if anyone ever doubts your credentials, I've got file footage of you trying to absolutely maniac drive around an OG Super Ute back in the day. And those things were like a fridge on wheels. So I don't know how you were able to do it back then. So if anyone ever doubts your credentials, I'll pull out the footage, mate.
Yeah, nice. The diesel era when we first did that was pretty wild times. Trying to make a diesel Super Ute do what we made them do was a bit of fun. But there's a few laughs along the way.
Oh, there's a lot of laughs, especially. There's still the amount of times I've played the grab of Matt Nolte saying "into the wall" with Matt McKeldin is too much. But anyway, Bubs, you've been very generous with your time, brother, and you got a big calendar ahead of you too, the Bend and a double at Sandown. So no doubt I'll catch you at one of those tracks. Thanks for taking some time out, and keep doing what you're doing, both on track and with AHU, mate. We're loving your work, and thanks for being back on the driver's seat.
Awesome news. Really appreciate it. Scotty and myself will be on the ground at QR too. So if there are any AHU fans out there, come say good day, grab a photo, and we'll see you there.
Should be good, mate. All right, mate, I'll catch you then.
Thanks, Nims.